is Thursday, June 4th, 6:40 p.m. I apologize for the delay with the technology. The first thing we have on our agenda tonight is to approve the meeting minutes of March 19th, 2020. That is the, does anyone have any questions or comments about those meeting minutes?
All
All
I
right,
move to approve the meeting minutes of March 2020.
all right. Is there a second?
I will second it.
All right. First and second, all those in favor, let's do a roll call vote. Mo, I have you up first on my camera.
I move to accept.
All right, so that's an aye. How about you, Cheryl?
That's an aye.
All right, and Melissa?
Aye.
All right, and Jan?
Aye.
And Scott?
Aye.
All right, I'm gonna follow that methodology. I wrote it all down this time. All right, so that's, and Mary Anderson, aye. That passes unanimously. Let's move on to the second item, which is to accept the meeting minutes of May 21st, 2020 for review. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept for review the minutes of May 21st, 2020.
Perfect. Mo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
And Mary Anderson, aye. All right, next we're going to review and vote on the recommendations for the articles for town meeting. So I put my warrant articles, so I have them in front of me. The first few articles are consent articles. These are the articles that we have every year. This would be for Article 1, 2, and is 3 consent, David?
No, just 1 and 2, Meredith.
Wow, it used to be so many more, but you're right. We did cut it down to just 1 and 2.
Yep.
So I would like to do we make a motion for all the consent articles first?
Yeah, 1 motion would be fine.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion regarding the first and second articles?
I'll make that motion to accept the consent articles.
So it would just Mary, just so you know, you're making recommendation articles, whether you recommend or do not recommend. So the motion would be whether you recommend it or not.
All right, then I'll recommend that. Do we recommend to accept?
Recommend Article 1 and 2.
Yes.
All right, that's been first. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, let's do a roll call vote. Mo?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Okay, and Mary Anderson, I better add myself to the list or I'm gonna forget every time. Mary, aye. So that's a unanimous vote for both articles. Let's move on to Article 3. This is to see if we can set the salaries for the elected town officials for the upcoming year.
So what were these an increase from last year or?
So the only difference is this is the same for everybody except for the town clerk. The town clerk is receiving a 2.75% increase.
Thank you, David.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
To recommend?
Yes, to recommend.
All right, there's a first, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, let's start with Mo.
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I had feedback.
Aye.
Thank you. And Mary, aye. so that passes unanimously. All right, we're already moving on to Article 4. That is our town budget, which we have already voted on, but just to be official, let's go ahead and make a motion for Article 4.
Move
I'll
to
make-
recommend,
Go ahead, Mo.
move to recommend Article 4.
Well, second.
I love seeing you guys fight over who's first and
Oh.
second. It's like arm wrestling over Zoom.
My turn.
All right, it's been first and seconded. Let's go ahead and take a roll call vote. Let's start with Mo,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
and Mary. Aye. Let's see, that's passed unanimously. I wonder if we should do any of these should we do any as like a bulk vote? Or do we have to?
I'm sorry.
Can we do any as a group, or do we have to do them individually? I forget.
No, you can do them as a group. I mean, so, for example, Article 5 is your exemptions. In Article 6 is your Chapter 90 funds. Those are the things every single year. So you can certainly group those two together easy enough.
All right, I'll take that recommendation and say, let's group Article 5 and 6 if anyone would like to make a recommendation. These are articles that appear each year. The first one has to do with exemptions for the elderly, widows, veterans, and the blind regarding their real estate tax. Article 6 is is this for the Chapter 90? Yes, this is for the Chapter 90 funds that are for the DPW to expend. We have to borrow them in advance in case they're not released in time of spending. So that would be Article 5 and 6. Would anyone like to make a recommendation?
So,
Make a recommendation to approve Article 5 and Article 6.
so can I ask a question about Article 6 first?
Absolutely.
Is this revenue from the state in any jeopardy because of the?
I would say no.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously everything could be in jeopardy at this point.
Okay.
Even during the Great Recession, when they confirmed as to what they were giving us for Chapters 90 funds, they always still gave that money. So I do not believe that they would be rescinding this amount.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
Need a second?
Yes, we need a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Mo. It's been first and seconded. Let's do a roll call vote. Mo,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
and Mary. Aye. So that passes unanimously. Moving for Article 5 and Article 6. For Article 7, this has to do with the CPA funds. And this, ooh, go right ahead. Nope, go right ahead, David. This has to do with,
I was going to help you. Just I was going to say Article 7, Article 8, Article 9, and Article 10 all have to do with CPC. So if you would like to group them, you can. Article 7 is the money that you are setting up, that you're receiving in receipts that is not being spent. Article 8 is we received additional money from the state government this past year for CPC. And because we hadn't accepted it at town meeting, you're just accepting it here. So that's good. We're getting an extra $9,000 that we didn't expect. Article 9 is for Friendship Park. Although we haven't started construction on it yet, we've borrowed the money. So that way, whenever we do start, we have the money. So you have to make a debt payment. And Article 10 is your only new CPC article this year, which is $17,500 for the preservation of Skim Milk Bridge.
Can I-
What? Oh, a bridge? Where is that bridge?
I'll speak to it if you want me to, Mary. I just don't.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Gimmill Bridge is up near Scotland Street. It is one of the oldest stone bridges, I believe, in Massachusetts, if not the country.
Wow.
And so it's a little bit in disrepair. It is behind some conservation land that the town owns, and it is adjacent to or oversees or whatever. The bridge goes over the town river. So they're looking to be able to restore it. Again, it's an old stone bridge. It's actually really pretty. And so that's what they're looking to do.
So all of this money we have, we're just recommending to spend it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question on Article 9? You said something about the money's already been borrowed, but if we haven't spent it yet, why would the money be borrowed?
Because the treasurer every November does a municipal bond program. So he does it once a year, because every time you go out to bond, you incur fees and expenses. So every November, he always bonds all the debt that is required to bond for the year at that one time. So if you will bond in November, the money will sit in the account until it gets spent. So that's why we have to make our first payment this year.
Okay. Lorna, I'm getting a lot of feedback from what says to be your specific computer. Can we put that on mute?
Yes, no problem. 1 second.
It's not allowing me to mute you. Ah, beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, that's much better.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like, is that me? All right, thanks.
So when are we going to spend that money? Is it because of the virus that we haven't started that yet?
For Friendship Park?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's because we have a community build planned, which involves bringing together more than 10 people at a time. So currently it's restricted.
Okay.
We're hoping though in the early fall to put it up. That's still the plan for this upcoming, in the next couple of months.
Great.
So you said Articles 7, 8, 9, and 10 we can vote on together?
Yeah, they're all CPC, so that was a recommendation, but it's your choice, Mary.
No, it would be okay with me because I'm familiar with this from year to year. Does anyone have questions on these? I don't want to push forward without anyone understanding. The CPC receives money on our real estate tax bills each year, and it goes into these different categories. And then the different categories receive requests to spend the money. For example, Friendship Park. Another example is restoring the historical records. So that's what these different articles are relating to, but I don't want to steam forward if anyone has questions. All right, not hearing any questions. Would anyone like to make an article, make a recommendation for Articles 7, 8, 9, and 10?
I will make it.
I'd like to, go ahead.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Scott raised his
I'll
hand.
just second you. Go ahead. I'll move to recommend Article, was it 7, 8, 9, and 10?
Yes. All right, it's been moved. Is there a second, Cheryl?
I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor, let's go ahead and vote. Let's start with Mo.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Melissa.
Aye.
Jan.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Mary. Aye. All right, that passes unanimously. We're already up to Article 11. It feels like a. Oh, this is exciting. All right, so Article 11 is an article that we have each year. This is to put money into the post-employment benefits. It's not something that's required. I believe in the past we've put $100,000 in. This year, $50,000 from free cash was available to put towards this fund. This also helps increase our bond rating, if I'm not mistaken, David.
No, you're entirely correct. That's why we want to fund it, because we go out to bid for bond. One of the questions they ask is, although they always want to know how much, we can say now that we've done it 5 years in a row. It shows a consistent trend. It's good fiscal practice. So if we just skip 1 year, it would potentially hurt. So that's why you're right. We usually put more in. We can't afford as much, but this will definitely help us for bonding.
So is this like a growing fund that, what's this for?
David, can you go into detail on that?
Yep. So when retirees from the town of West Bridgewater, when they retired, they've given certain statutory protections to have health insurance, but health insurance has to get paid for. So
Oh,
it used to be under old Gatsby rules is that all you would do is that you would self-fund at that time. However, municipalities were forced then, I think it's Gatsby 45, but Mary, I might be wrong on that.
I can't believe you're talking accounting rules with me. This is exciting.
I did this just for you.
My geek flag's waving away.
But under the new accounting rules, the municipalities now have to actually show it as a liability whenever we do go out to bond and we show it on our auditing report. It used to not show as a liability. So as a result, the state now is requesting and recommending that we start to put money aside so that way we can eat into that liability over time.
yeah.
And now bonding agencies have gotten to the point where they're really looking to make sure that we're making at least some effort to try to do it. Understand our OPEB liability is 80 years old and 90 years old. We're not going to have it funded in 3 or 4 years. So bonding agencies understand that. They just want to see that we're making some effort towards it.
Okay, thank you.
There is an end game to this though, right, Dave? Eventually we catch up.
You're talking about retirement?
Yeah, maybe I am, yeah.
Correct. So that's a different program.
Okay.
This year has only to do with other benefits, which is chiefly health insurance.
Okay. So I'll move that we recommend Article 11.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, first and seconded. Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. Mo,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
and Mary. Aye. So that passes unanimously. Article 12, does that have anything to do with the future ones? Not so much.
That's
All right.
It does not.
Yeah, this is an annual one that comes up each year. This is for the West Bridgewater, East Bridgewater, and Bridgewater Task Force with the police. And I believe it had to do with online predators, but no, I'm being mistaken with that. I know it's that the 3 towns work together, and this is to match them in the expense.
You're entirely correct. It's the 3 towns working together in reference to drug. It's a drug task force.
Oh,
So what happens is that when somebody within the 3 Bridgewaters gets arrested, the district attorney's office then receives a conviction. Whatever they have for assets then is turned over to the district attorney. The district attorney retains 50%, and the district then gets its share of its 50%. So it goes into an account, and this $10,000 is a requirement as part of that plan. We actually receive about $20,000 to $30,000 a year on average, going through the drug task force monies, and so that's how we pay when instead of incurring overtime expense when one of our police officers goes on the web task force, we put it against this account, or if we have other expenses, we charge it against this account as well.
Yeah.
All right.
I think this is an easy one. I'll move to recommend.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right.
Just said-
First, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. So is that how much we funded every year? That's $10,000 flat? That's all they need?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, the first and seconded. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Mo,
Aye.
how do you vote? Okay. Cheryl,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
and Mary, aye. So that passes unanimously. Let's move on. Article 13.
Now 13, 14, and 15, if you would like to group together, They are, for lack of a better term, capital budget programs. So 13 is for the lift in the highway department. And Mary, I know you could speak to that, coming from the capital budget committee. The next one is the amount that we always put in now over the last couple of years. The Board of Selectmen has wanted to create a sidewalk fund so we can continue to do sidewalks on an annual basis. And the third one is in reference to the traffic signal at the Howard Street, West Central Street, West Center Street intersection, of which we would be receiving about 50% reimbursement from the state.
All right, does anyone have any questions on these three capital budgets? There were other capital budgets, but based on the current pandemic and the expected receipts, those were trimmed down by the Board of Selectmen. So these were the remaining and understood to be the most important of the capital budget. I know it's different than what we have. Oh, go ahead.
Mary, we will have one more. I just want to make sure you knew that we have one more coming up for the fire department. It's just not grouped together because this one, and I didn't want to confuse it. That's all.
Oh, okay.
So we have the cash for all of this, right? We won't be borrowing any of it.
That is correct.
All right. Does anyone have any questions on Article 13, 14, or 15? All right. Would anyone like to make a motion regarding these three articles or all three articles together?
I'll move to recommend Articles 13, 14, and 15.
All right. It's been moved. Is there a second?
I will second.
All right. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call vote. Mo,
Aye.
Cheryl, Melissa,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mary, aye. All right. Those three pass unanimously. All right. We've moved on to Article 16. I don't recognize what this is for. What is this one, David?
You are right. That's why I didn't want to group it because it would have confused everything. So I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Article 16 is brand new. This is a little funny, but we are going to see this in the future. And this is going to become we will call it an Uber account. And what the state of Massachusetts did was last year was that they've now assigned a small tax on every single Uber or Lyft ride that is done in Massachusetts. That tax is then collected into a fund and then redistributed based on some metric to each municipality, of which we can do anything we want with the money. But it has to go to town meeting and it has to be approved to go somewhere. So for this past year, our annual contribution was $2,301. And the Board of Selectmen thought that since sidewalks are really important to the town, is that it would be wise to take that money and put it into the sidewalk fund just to give us a little extra to keep on trying to do sidewalks. Obviously, it's not a lot of money, but we had to put it somewhere. And they thought that sidewalks were pretty important. That's where to put it. So that's what this article is.
For someone who's been walking miles each day, I can't even stress how important the sidewalks are. Even during coronavirus, people are, there's certain children they can aim for, but not all of them. All right. How do you guys, does anyone want to make a motion on this?
I don't think we should be aiming at any of them, Mary.
No, of course, I'm being silly, but man, you try being home with them all day. It's exhausting. I can't wait to go back to work. Any recommendations on Article 7? Sorry, 16.
To recommend Article 16.
All right, is there a second?
Sure. I'll second Article 16.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. Mo,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mary, aye. All right. That has been moved and seconded, or passed unanimously. Let's move on to Article 17. And this is the other one from the Capital Budget Committee. Is that correct, David?
Yes, that is correct. And the reason we grouped it this way is because the previous 4 articles are all going to deal with the DPW department. And as a result, we don't want, when somebody moves it, we don't want them to have to keep on getting up to sit down. So that's why we grouped the first for DPW, and then we grouped the next one as fire. So that's why this capital budget one is the next one.
Can I ask a question? How does Article 16 with moving the money into the sidewalk stabilization fund have to do with the DPW?
Because the DPW is the one that built the sidewalks.
Do they have authority over the account?
Yep.
That doesn't have to go to town meeting to be spent?
Sure. So on Article 14, it's being spent. Like in Article 14, the town meeting is saying we're going to spend $150,000 on sidewalks. So, you gave, through that article, town meeting gave approval to the DPW to do the sidewalks, but they're the ones that oversee it. So the $2,301, we made it as a DPW. I mean, it could have been Board of Selectmen, but since it'll go into sidewalks and eventually the DPW would be the one spending it, but they can't spend this $2,301. It goes into the full fund. And then that's when in Article 14, the town meeting then authorizes whatever number to spend on sidewalks.
So Article 14 was to spend $150,000 on sidewalks.
Correct.
Do we have any way of knowing which sidewalks?
So the DPW department has a committee that looks at it, and then that committee provided like a ranking of, I think, the top 7 or 8 places, and they brought it to the Board of Selectmen a year ago. And I thought
Streets Committee.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And then it goes to the selectmen, and then the selectmen approve it, and then DPW then goes out and does it. So that's how Howard's.
Oh, all right. I didn't know that we had already approved money to be spent. I thought as part of the Complete Streets committee, we were looking at what needed to be done, but I didn't know we had gone ahead and said, okay, this is what's going to be first. This 150 is going to be spent on that, and et cetera.
Yeah, so I don't know where this 150 is. I just know that there was the committee. I know the committee looked at prioritizing sidewalks about a year or 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And I know that came before the selectmen approved it. And I know the first one was Howard Street. And I want to say the second one was River Street. So my guess is, although I'm guessing, but my guess is that they would then be working on River Street next.
I'm not sure it was River,
See that?
but okay, all right. I had misunderstood how all of that worked. But anyway, we're on Article 17. Sorry to digress.
That's okay.
Does anyone have questions on the fire department purchasing a Ford F-250?
So can you remind me, David, do they have a truck and they're replacing it? I'm trying to remember what they said, or they had a car and they're replacing it with a truck, or?
Correct. So they're going to be replacing a car with a truck. The vehicle that will be moved out of service is a 2008 Crown Victoria with about 170,000 miles on it. And they will be replacing that vehicle with this truck.
Okay.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions on this article, or would you like to make a motion?
I'll move that we recommend Article 17.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Not hearing any further discussion. Let's go into a vote. Mo?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
And Mary? Aye. So that passes unanimously. Let's go on to Article 18. This is the article that was going to be part of the special town meeting in March This was to purchase the land on Lincoln Street for $600,000 for a recreation area. I think we should have some discussion. Anybody have any questions on this?
David, of the 15 acres, how much can we actually use that isn't wetlands?
Yep, so what's going to be developable is 8 acres. And when we say developable, that is what we can build on. The additional 7 acres is considered wetland that you cannot build on. However, it is not classified as wet from the standpoint that you can still use it for passive open space. So that means that if we envision that we would still be able to put like walking trails or maybe a running trail, but mainly a walking trail and allow people to still be able to walk out there. There's a little pond out back. So, but it's not, the soil is not conducive to building on. So to answer your question, I think I'm doing it right, is that 8 acres is what would be developable.
Okay.
I see some questions coming up at town meeting on whether or not this is necessary, especially considering the current pandemic. And I just want us to be prepared for those questions. I'm not saying one way or the other, because I definitely know the kids need places to play. I see it with my own kids. If we didn't have a big backyard, I'm not sure what I would do. But I think I have heard some rumorings that there were going to be some people very much against this because of the potential of spending a lot of money on it. So I just want to bring that into the conversation so that we're all on the same page. So does anyone have any questions on this? I wonder if we should probably vote on Article 18 and 19 separately, even though they both have to do with the purchase and then the design and engineering for athletic fields on Rousseau Street, on Rousseau's property. I've been hearing some rumblings that why are we spending this kind of money if we can't give the departments what they need? I'm also hearing that if we're going to be so short on cash, why are we spending this kind of money at this time? That maybe the timing's not right. So I'm just bringing up any potential conversations that I've been having over the last few weeks, just so that we're not blinded when someone mentions it.
You know, I think we've talked about this a lot, Mary, and you're bringing up very valid points, no doubt. We really should be careful. However, with real estate the way it is here in West Bridgewater in the year 2020, and knowing that there's not a lot of open space to be gathered any longer, I think this would make sense. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. You sell it for even more money. But to your point, I think, we can continue to talk about it. But the way I look at it is we were kind of talking about it over and over about lack of space, needing open space. This was one of the few. And even though $600,000 is a lot of money, it's not that much for land nowadays.
I have to agree with that statement. It's definitely not that much considering it's for 15.5 acres when there are 8 acres developable.
And they're not making any more land.
Right.
Right.
There's a lot of
No?
wet land in West Bridgewater, so we're not going to get probably another opportunity. This is a pretty good location. The land is good. We're getting a really good price on it. And like Scott said, worst case scenario, if something happens and we need the cash, we could sell it if we had to. It's really an asset for an asset. We're trading cash for another asset.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, and I think that's a good point to make to the town, that it's like the golf course.
Yeah.
Something really bad happened, we own it, So
I really like how you said asset for an asset, because we're going to be paying for this with cash. We're not even trying to bond this out.
Right.
I'm hearing that there are a lot of questions on the potential athletic fields complex, that it's potentially going to be $2 to $3 million, and how could we possibly afford that? But I do think that's putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah. I do too.
I think this is a fantastic deal. And I know my kids are absolutely going to love it. So from that bias, I'm for it, but I want to make sure that we all have a chance to voice our opinion.
Yeah. I mean, when we know that we don't have enough fields to support the kids that want to play all these sports now, we know that. And we also know that, this town is building, pretty nice, expensive new homes. And I think people expect that their kids are going to be able to play sports and whatnot when you get into a town like this. So,
No, I agree. They're building large, 4 or 5 bedroom, 3, 4, 5 bedroom homes. Absolutely.
and a developer will grab this up and develop it if we don't as well.
Yeah, I had heard of a couple who are interested actually. But does anyone want to make or have further questions on this article?
No, I think we can recommend this in good faith, that we're trying to do the very best thing for the town. I know it's expensive and our budget is tight. If we don't do this, it will be a lost opportunity to do things for future generations of the town.
No, I think that's good about it being a lost opportunity. All right, so it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. Mo,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Yes?
Melissa,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
and Mary, aye. All right, so that passes unanimously. Let's go ahead and vote on Article 19 separately, since that's a separate issue about investing in this piece of property. Is there any discussion, or would anyone like to go ahead and make a motion?
So
Okay.
this one's a little different in my view, because this is actually spending money to look at developing that land. And if people don't feel like we're ready to move forward with that could be a different thing, right? David, what exactly would they be doing with this money?
So what we would do is we would go out to bid and we would hire an engineering company that specializes in this type of work. So what they would do is that they would look at, what John Delano has done by giving us different conceptual designs.
Yep.
They will then, and for the rest of this finance committee, Jan on the recreational space committee, so she knows what I'm referring to. An agent who's on that committee has created a bunch of conceptual designs as to what kind of fields potentially could fit on there. But there's a lot of questions that still have to be answered. For example, where would the septic system go? Where would parking go? If we're thinking about having a couple of indoor courts, so we would have, say, indoor basketball courts with restrooms, and then you would have outdoor facilities as well. So how much is that all going to cost? And the thought process is to have somebody that would come back with multiple designs, so that way we could go back to the town at a later date and say, look, spend this, you can get this. If you want to spend some more, you can get this. And if you want to spend even more, you can get this. So that would be the idea of having them do it. So they would let us know what is feasible, how it would look. They should be able to give us some type of renditions or drawings, and then they would be able to give us a reasonable and realistic price, so we could go back to town meeting and then make some decisions at that point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any other questions on this article, or would anyone like to make a recommendation? Is this potentially one that we defer to voters?
I'll recommend Article 19.
All right.
I'll
Is there a
second.
All right. First and seconded. All those in favor of recommending this article? Mo,
Aye.
Cheryl,
She's muted.
Cheryl,
She's on mute. Cheryl, you're on mute.
Excuse me. Aye.
all right. Thank you. Melissa,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
and Mary, aye. I do want to see what they can come up with. So this has been passed unanimously. Let's move on to Article 20. David, can you talk about this one? I believe this is the one we were talking about earlier, about moving the money out of an article into the special education account.
Correct. You're entirely correct, Mary. So a handful of years ago at the Spring Street School, we went to town meeting, and town meeting appropriated, I don't remember off the top of my head, but probably about $140,000 or so to pave the Spring Street School project, but the parking lot. We went out to bid, and it turned out that we were able to pave everything for $49,000 less than we originally thought. So that money was not spent. It's just sitting in that account. And it will sit in that account forever because only town meeting can move it. Or it can only be spent on Spring Street paving, which would be another 20 years or so in theory. So the school superintendent, the school department believes, since we set up last year a special education stabilization fund, we didn't put any money into it. Their thought process is, instead of having the money just sit in this account doing nothing, let's move the money into the SPED stabilization account, where it's just going to go from one article to another. However, as we know, if they do receive, unfortunately, some unforeseen SPED costs going forward, at least there would be an account that they would be able to access. Now, the money can't just be spent by the school committee. There are some checks on it. The school committee has to approve it, and the Board of Selectmen have to approve it as well. But instead of having the money just sit in a paving account that's not doing us anything good, I think that this would be wise for us to put it into a SPED stabilization account, knowing knowing what's going on with SPED spending at this point.
Right.
So the idea would be that if we get an unexpected special ed case that we maybe didn't anticipate and hadn't funded for, they could go to this account to cover that. Is that the idea? Am I remembering that right?
You're entirely correct.
Okay. So they can spend it though without a town meeting vote. They need the selectmen and the school board.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
You are.
I think this is a pretty easy one. I don't know if there's other conversations. I'll move to recommend.
Also,
All right. Thank you. First and second, not hearing any further conversation, let's go ahead into a roll call vote. Mo,
aye.
Cheryl, Melissa,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mary, aye. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, we're moving on to Article 21. This has to do with money being spent by the Water Department to purchase a Ford F-350 pickup truck.
So, Mary, if you would like, again, your choice, Article 21, Article 22, Article 23, Article 24, Article 25, and Article 26 are all water-related articles. So I can give it a quick explanation to the best that I can on each one. And if you would like to group it, your choice, but that would be your option.
Yeah, could you give us a synopsis on each one, please?
Yep. So Article 21 is for them to purchase a new Ford F-350. They have historically driven vans, and the van that they were in, the van that they had back in November was involved in a pretty serious car accident. It was not their fault. Somebody else actually hit them head on, and the vehicle was totaled. So as a result, we'll obviously get some insurance money in, but they need an authorization from town meeting to go out to purchase the vehicle and use the money up front. So they'll, instead of purchasing a van, which is rear-wheel drive and not as user-friendly, they want to be able to purchase a pickup truck. They've done the work and they believe that they can store just as much in the pickup as they did in the van, but they would have the additional benefit of being four-wheel drive. And they would also have the ability to, because it's open in the back, is to be able to transport items that they normally couldn't transport necessarily in the van. So it just becomes a more user-friendly vehicle.
So can you
David,
remind me why this one's so much cheaper than the F-250? Because F-350s are usually more, but I can't remember what he said. When I think I asked him, but I can't remember what he said.
Yeah. So the one that the fire chief is getting for his, one is that you have to outfit it with a light bar and a whole bunch of other equipment for the fire department, and you have to
Okay.
paint it. So this one here doesn't need to be painted, and you don't have to outfit it. So we should experience some savings from that.
Okay, thank you. Just trying to remember.
If, David, when we do get the insurance money, we're going to borrow 41. Where does the insurance proceeds go?
So the insurance proceeds cannot go back into the budget. It is what they refer to as a general fund receipt. However, and because it's a water department, your other articles are all water surplus. That means that they had more money than they brought in more money than what they originally budgeted for or we actually spent. And so when the insurance money comes in, that would fall to water surplus for the following year.
Okay.
Article 22, up on Norman Ave, there is a pump that has failed the starter motor has failed. They've spent considerable amount of time and money trying to replace it. And at this point, it's just not worth it to keep on having to manually start it and work on it. So they're looking to purchase a new one. Article 23 is to pay down debt that they've already incurred. And Article 24 is to do the same. Article 25, in full candor, I do not know a lot about. What I do know is that every single year the water department applies for a Mass DEP grant. So that grant is supposed to help them to do whatever it is that they're doing. I think it has to do with permitting wells, but again, I don't entirely know. And this year they've been awarded the grant. As part of the grant, they have to spend $77,000 as part of it. So I don't know what they're receiving in return. A question we would have to ask directly to the water commissioners. But if they're able to get some monies for something that they need, but they have to spend some monies, which they would eventually have to do anyway, then it just makes sense to me. And the last one is that should have went in front of the Capital Budget Committee. It didn't, because at that time their radios worked fine. And apparently they now have some radio transmitter issues and they need to purchase a new transmitter. And that's $11,000. So it came after capital budget. That's why it was just bad timing from that standpoint. But they need to obviously be able to communicate with each other.
They spending the 77,000 on? That doesn't seem to be clear.
We didn't know.
Because I didn't do a good job of giving you an answer. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that they applied for a grant that in years past they have not been able to receive. They have now been awarded the grant, and as part of the grant process, they have to be able to put some money into the account. It's not unsimilar to what we've done on the town side. For example, last year we went to the town, and the federal government was willing to pay for a capture exhaust system, which means that our fire trucks, when they run, you don't want all the exhaust inside because obviously you can get cancer from it. That was almost $70,000, and we had to kick in 5%. It wasn't a big kick in. It was only 5%. But it was obviously we had to spend something in order to get the rest of it. DEP must have a similar structure on something. I just unfortunately do not know what that something is.
So it's some kind of matching. We don't know what the ratio is.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it that way, except that I don't want to use the word matching because I don't know if it's dollar for dollar. I really don't know what the formula is. I mean, I'm just throwing this out there. Again, I could be entirely wrong. But let's assume something costs $100,000 and they're willing to come up with 23,000 if we have to come up with 77. We're still better off than coming up with the whole 100. Now, it may very well be, it could be matching dollar for dollar. Maybe it's a 5%, 5 cents on the dollar, where they're giving us $350,000. I don't know. All I know is that they're giving us something, and the water department feels strongly that they have to do it. My job as town administrator and answering to the Board of Selectmen is that I take care of the tax side, and their money is entirely through the water rates, which is set from the water commissioners. So I don't have a lot of day-to-day activity on their budget. Quite frankly, they're elected. And so I just automatically, I defer to them on these matters.
And And this does look like it's money being transferred from water surplus, so at least it's not going to raise the water rate.
Do we know what the water surplus number is by any chance?
Yeah, the water surplus off the top was about $700,000 this year.
Wow.
Now, the one thing to keep in mind is water surplus, if not spent, rolls year over year. So last year they had $384,000 in water surplus. They did not spend it all. So if they
Oh,
spent, I'm making up a number, but if they spent 184,000 out of the 384, there was 200,000 left. So when we have a $700,000 surplus, that means they generated 500,000 in that 1 year. Again, that's an example. That's not exact numbers, but I want you to understand how it works.
All right.
It rolls forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to confuse people at town meetings.
Yeah, most people understand the tax side, but the water surplus side is a little bit different, and we don't spend as much time on it, and so it's just not as familiar with people.
I mean, didn't they have like a whole, was it last year or the year before, where they were going into a lot of detail about needing new wells, and I don't see anything on here about new wells. Are they?
Yeah, they originally were going to have something on for new wells, and then they decided not to do it. Again, I don't know the history or the background behind it.
Thank you.
That's a good point.
Have we ever deferred to voters regarding the water department? Because
I think we have.
it does affect the tax rate. So we have no jurisdiction,
Yeah, I think we have.
honestly, voting on it.
No, I mean, the only thing I will say is that the role of the finance committee, when you go to town meeting and you approve whatever on the town side, that is how your tax rate is set. So I hear all the time they get mad at the Board of Selectmen because they don't like how high their taxes are. Well, they don't set the tax. Town meeting sets the tax through the budget process. All you do is you determine how much town meeting is willing to approve, and you divide it by the number of taxpayers. I'm simplifying it, and that becomes your tax bill. On the water side, it's very similar. You are approving a water budget, and then you're approving water articles. And then they divide that up by water users, and that becomes their water usage rate. So it's the same role, it's just a different funding mechanism. So you do have a role in that.
It just doesn't seem as transparent as the tax side.
Yeah, what role do we have in setting the water rate? I know the Board of Assessors sets the tax rate, but what role does the town have in setting the water rate?
Only the water commissioners set the water rate. So again, just to have the right example, is that when we set our budget at town meeting, the Board of Assessors then takes that whole number, divides it up by the number of taxpayers, and they come out with a formula for what the tax rate could be, which has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. On the water side, you approve water expenditures. The water commissioners then divide that by the water users, and they come out with a water rate. And they don't have that second step with the Board of Assessors because they set it themselves.
Is that where the lack of transparency is?
So the commissioners, the water commissioners approve a budget, then we look at it and we recommend, we don't approve anything, and the selectmen are involved as well.
Yep. So because it's a separately elected board with a separate water revenue stream that they have a duty over, the selectmen and we will do a review to make sure that everything seems okay. But I don't do the same in-depth analysis with the water department as I do with any other budget, because I have no control, or the selectmen have no control or role in setting water rates. So,
Okay.
so we then forward it along, and then town meeting votes on it. So right now, your water budget is $2.1 million. The water commissioners will then do a formula over the summer, assuming that number is approved, and they will determine a water rate system based on that budget. But if at town meeting said, sorry, we don't want to give you 2.1 million, we only want to give you 1.7 million. Well, then the water rates go down because it's a smaller budget. So that's how you control it from that standpoint. But obviously, the water commissioners are asking for a budget that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So we believe it makes sense. So that's why they're asking for 2.1 million. Out of that 2.1 million, they set their rates. They bring in $2.1 million of revenue, but they don't spend all 2.1 million. They only spend 2 million. That $100,000 difference falls to the books as water surplus. And that way next year, town meeting then has the ability to move that money out of water surplus and do something with it, which is what is in front of you now. That's your role as finance committee. Well, do we want to spend our water surplus on a radio transmitter system? Now they have to talk. So I think the answer is yes. But you do have a role in that where you could say, no, we would rather not do that. We would rather you take the water surplus and lower your water rate with it, for example, or buy a new well or do something different. That's where your role comes in.
So what's the total of all these? So there's 40.
So it's $260,000 coming from water surplus and $41,000 coming from borrowing.
260. So
Yeah,
that leaves them. What did you say? It was 7 what?
It was about, I think 704, but just say $7,000 to round it. So that would leave them then 440,000.
Yeah. Which they can either use to reduce the rates or just save to do a well later or something else later, right?
Correct. However, in both scenarios, that requires town meeting approval. They can't spend water surplus money without town meeting approval, the way the Board of Selectmen cannot spend free cash money without town meeting approval.
Oh, even to reduce the rates.
That is correct.
Oh, okay. So clearly they're not planning to do that. Clearly they're going to keep the surplus rate. Because that's not on here.
Truth, I mean, in fairness to the water department, as much as they know, but we know that they have some debt outstanding, and we know that they're going to have capital improvement projects coming in the future. They would be wiser using that money towards those than lowering the rates. But that's a water commissioner's decision.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. They got to have some money in there, I think. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so it sounds like we're looking to vote on Articles 21 through 26 together in one vote. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I mean, I just feel like these are reasonable, so I'd make a motion that we recommend it to the town.
Yeah, I don't see us taking on more debt in any of these, so.
Just the truck, they
The truck
borrow.
can do anything, yeah.
And that's a big need for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll second it.
All right, first and second. I haven't heard any other discussion. Let's go ahead with a roll call vote. Mo,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
and Mary, aye. So Articles 21 through 26 have been passed unanimously. Let's go on to, oops, I'm sorry, Jan, what was that?
I think 27 is going to tell you where your sidewalks are going.
So Article 27, is it okay, Mary, if I talk?
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
So Article 27 is the sidewalk that has already been mostly installed on Howard Street. At the corner of Howard Street and West Center Street, across from the school, there is a residential property there, and a very small sliver of where the sidewalk is actually encroaches onto private property.
Oh,
The people who live there is Mr. and Mrs. Hoffman. And we went to Mr. and Mrs. Hoffman in the fall, and they signed a right of entry to allow us to be able to put the sidewalk and encroach onto their property, because we need to then get an easement by law in order to build the sidewalk and finish it. And only town meeting can approve a sidewalk, approve an easement. So they gave us a right of entry. We have done 90% of the sidewalk. And then once town meeting approves the easement, we will then put its cap on and be done with Howard Street.
okay. And so the property owners were fine with this? Is that what I'm hearing?
They've already signed the right of entry and they've already signed the easement, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And there is no cost. You're welcome.
They're awesome.
Is this,
They were parents I went to school with, the Hoffmans. So they've always been good townies.
so there's no money, so is this a refer to voters for us usually?
Well, I mean, the only reason I would want to recommend it is because if for whatever reason it fails, we have an unfinished sidewalk. And
Oh,
that seems a little silly. And the Hoffmans obviously are willing to get this. There's no harm in this. So I would, in my opinion, I would want to see this pass, and therefore I'd like to see a favorable recommendation.
okay.
From a financial point of view, they're offering to do this without a cost.
Yeah.
So I think we should take that into consideration in making this vote.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, again, an easy one. I'll move to Article 27.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, not hearing any further discussion, let's move on to a roll call vote. Mo,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jan,
Hi.
Scott,
Aye.
and myself, aye. So that passes unanimously. Now we're going to move on to Article 28. This is our own bylaw. And I don't know if any of you read the FinCom letter. I didn't mention it. And that was one thing I thought maybe we should mention in the FinCom letter, but I want to make sure we were all on the same page before we talk about that. So yeah, this is based on what we talked about at the last meeting. Does anyone have any questions about this?
No, we
All right.
we fixed the 3, 2, and 2, right? Wasn't that?
Yes, that was supposed to be in section.
3, 2, 2, 1. Section 3.
Yep, section 3.
Section 3, there it is, and 2 for 1 year. Yep.
Okay.
Would anyone like to make a recommendation? Is that right? This is Article 29, right?
Article 28.
This is Article 28. Well, it's at the end. Maybe I'm misreading. Okay. Article 28. Anyone have any further discussion or want a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's about, okay. I'll make a motion to recommend it.
Go ahead.
All right, is there a second? There we go, Mo. All right, not hearing any further discussion aside from what's going on in the kitchen. Roll call vote. Let's go ahead, Mo.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Melissa.
Aye.
Jan.
Hi.
Scott.
Aye.
Mary. Aye. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, moving on to Article 29. This has to do with a zoning bylaw. It has to do with where driveways are placed. This was something we discussed in the bylaw study committee. And apparently what has happened in the past is sometimes when developments have been set up, the binder coat or just the first layer of the driveway was put down, and they were promised by the contractor that they would receive the rest of the driveway installation, which would be the top coat. But then the development gets finished and the contractor says, yeah, I never promised you that, or something along those lines. This is to create rules about where a driveway is placed and to make sure an occupancy permit is not given until the driveway has been completed, confirmed, unless they put in a surety bond. And this is to prevent contractors from flaking on the job relating to driveways and new developments or any new construction. I don't believe there is a financial impact on this one aside from receiving the surety bond from the contractors or whomever, depending on what is necessary and who's putting what in place. In order to receive the certificate of occupancy, they have to deposit a cash surety with the town for $5,000, which they receive back once they've completed the driveway. So this is to prevent any further issues in any new development.
So this looks like it's talking about the placement of it too. Is this like it has to be 75 feet from an intersection and.
Yeah, they did get very specific on where the driveways had to be placed.
Is that going to cause people problems? Like, I'm not really close enough to this to really.
I'm afraid I'm not close enough to that to know for sure.
Well, sorry. It did state that this was for new stuff. It was like people who have their driveways in whatever configuration are grandfathered.
Mm-hmm.
They have to move their driveway.
This was specifically for new construction. For when they go for the certificate of occupancy, there was, if the driveway hadn't been completed, that had no effect on the certificate of occupancy. So if the contractor still owed the building owner a driveway, there was no way to hold them to it. I believe this has been an issue up on Farm Road or Pearl. I'm not sure if it's each or one or both. But I don't believe there is a recommendation necessary from the Finance Committee, seeing that there's no true financial impact to the town, seeing that a $5,000 bond is going to be deposited with the town, and then it would be returned upon completion of the driveway in order to issue that occupancy permit.
Okay.
So this may be one that we want to refer to voters.
Yeah, I kind of think it's a little out of my area of expertise. There's no financial impact per se, so I don't know if we should just refer to the voters.
Yeah, I think
that's
good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like
I'll make a motion we refer to voters. Article 20.
All right. Keep forgetting how long this is.
Second.
Article 29, first and seconded to refer to voters. Not hearing any other discussion, let's go ahead for a roll call vote. Mo?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
And Mary? Aye. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, we are moving on to Article 30. This was another one that we talked about at the bylaw study committee. This was one I was kind of stuck on because there was so much legalese in this. I felt like there were a lot of places to poke holes in it. It wasn't my role as for being on the bylaw study committee. I also know that the town voted very strongly to be against future solar fields. But again, that wasn't my role on the bylaw study committee, that it should be brought up to the voters. It doesn't seem to have much of a financial impact to the town either. It kind of depends on whether or not these solar panels. So the purpose of this article is to amend the solar bylaw that we currently have in town. This bylaw was put in place a few years ago, but not that long ago. I still remember it, so it can't be more than 7 or 8 years ago. Where the town had or the town's people were very much against solar fields being set up in the future. So this is to amend the bylaw that was put in place at the time and to say, except for certain situations where it's agricultural land, that if it's land of 15 acres, 10 acres of it can be used for solar purposes if it's used as a dual use system. So this is going to allow those 10 acres to be farmed as well as used for solar mounts. So this is something that's coming in through Department of Agriculture. This is something that has a lot of rules from the state point of view. So the bylaw study committee had the town council review this bylaw before it got to us. But still, even upon reviewing it and talking it out with David, I'm not sure there's a true financial impact from our point of view. I think we can vote as residents at town meeting on how we feel about solar. I think our vote at this point has to do with the financial impact to the town, which, depending on whether or not those solar panels are put in place, that's going to depend on whether or not there's excise tax on it. It's going to depend on whether or not there's a payment in lieu of taxes or a pilot plan, as in other buildings that had solar put on top of it. So there's still a lot of unknowns from the financial point of view. But
Mary, is it trying to make it less restrictive or more restrictive in terms of whether they can put panels?
this was to allow a specific situation. So
Oh.
there's currently a farmer in town who has farmland, or at least that's how it is treated by the tax code. Whether or not he actually uses it for farmland, I don't know. And I don't know if that comes into effect here. But the fact that he has these full 15 acres, it's going to say, as of this date and time, from this day forward, unless you have 15 acres under the same ownership as of this date, then you can't do this. So it's my understanding is that this is going to allow a single resident to participate in the program. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to affect other residents with land or common owned land. But again, I'm not sure how that falls under the scope of the Finance Committee.
Yeah, it feels like a refer to voters to me.
Yeah, it does to me too. And we can all vote how we want to vote at town meeting, but from a financial point of view, I'm not sure what our impact is. Does anyone have questions? I know it's very long and convoluted, and usually as soon as they start to get long and convoluted, we refer to voters.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking I don't want to eat the vegetables near this. So, you know.
Right?
Was that the kind of concern that people had? Was that it was going to have some kind of toxic effect toward people?
No, it sounded more like this farmer was going to be grazing animals underneath, but I was recently told he's not grazing animals currently, so I'm not sure how that's going to change with solar panels. But again, that's outside the scope of the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
I'll make a motion. We refer this to the voters.
All right, is there a second?
Sorry.
Yeah, good call out.
I'll
Second.
second.
I'm sorry, that all came through garbled for me.
Oh, sorry. I said that was a good idea. I will second you.
Thanks, Scott. All right, it's been first and seconded. I'm not hearing any other discussion, so let's go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Aye.
All right, and Cheryl.
Aye.
All right, Melissa.
Aye.
I'm Jan.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Mary. Aye. We're going to refer this one to the voters. All right, let's move on to Article 31. This has to do with the digital message boards. This is something else that the Bylaw Study Committee reviewed a few times. And that's a committee that I am a member of on behalf of the Finance Committee. So it turns out there are a few message boards in town that rotate what they're displaying And in the past, it has caused motor vehicle accidents. It sounded as though there had been 5 or 6 into one specific area that had to do with the digital message board. Scott, you better not be giggling. I can see you.
I am. I'm laughing right now. I hope no one around here drives in Las Vegas.
Yeah, right.
Right? Well, apparently there was one specific message board that was much brighter than it needed to be and was causing a problem. So this is to more standardize the usage. I know it was mentioned that the message boards on Route 24, that's all mathematically strategized. I mean, they know how long you need to look at the video or the visual message and the speed that you're going and how long it's going to take you to see all of the messages on the message board. Bring it into kind of create a rule on how bright it can be and how often that message can be changing. I don't see a financial impact on this one, but I am happy to discuss further if anyone wants to know more.
Yeah, Mary, if I could just jump in for one moment, please.
Sure.
Article 31, 32 are the same bylaw. When it came to my desk from the bylaw study committee, it wasn't the fault of the bylaw study committee. It was poorly written because Article 31 refers to section 4.4 of the table of uses. And what that bylaw that came in tried to do was amend the table of uses, which is our Article 4.4 in our zoning bylaw, and also amend Article 6.5 of our zoning bylaw for signs. And you can't have one article make a change to multiple bylaws. So we had to group this as to 2 separate warrant articles, but we're going to move it together. So the discussion now in the discussion, because Article 31, all you're doing is defining a digital message board in the table of use. That's all you do. Article 32 is what's going to authorize its usage along with the definitions of size and other elements. So a vote on one is really a vote on both. I just wanted to make sure you know that.
All right, thank you. I hadn't say we're split into 2, but I would feel the same for both of them, that we should probably refer to voters.
Would this be for new signage or existing?
I believe it's for both.
I'm wondering what the sign manufacturers or people that own these signs, what their comments might be with regard to dictating to them what illumination they can have and what messaging they can have and how often it changes.
So just so you're aware, we only have one digital board sign right now in town, which is at the high school. The other ones are available, but they are not rotating a message at this point. They're looking to rotate a message. This does not have to do with the billboard signs out on Route 24. This is a smaller digital board sign that is actually in the confines of the town, not on Route 24. So when you think about this article, think about the rotating digital board sign at the school and think of other businesses that would like to have one that is similar.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or who previously rotated digital
Correct.
signs.
Exactly. That's correct.
I understand. So we want to refer to voters?
I
think that's probably,
Okay, I'll move that we refer Article 31, if I can read it, to the voters.
What about Article 32?
And 32.
All right.
I'll second.
All right. 31 and 32 are refer to voters. Let's take a roll call vote. Let's start with Mo.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Melissa.
Aye.
Jan.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
And Mary. Aye. All right. Those pass unanimously. Hey, we went through all these. That's all the warrant articles. Woo, woo.
That is,
Check out.
Mary, you're entirely correct. That's all your warrant articles. And the one item I want to make sure that you're aware of is Article 29, which is the Finance Committee bylaw. The finance committee will be the one moving it. So usually that would be the chair. And so again, the town meeting is going to be 2 days after the election. So just keep that in mind, that where Meredith is running for selectman is that if she is still on the finance committee, then Meredith, you would probably be the one to move it, although that's your committee's decision, but normally it's the chair. And if Meredith is not on the finance committee anymore, then it would be somebody else that would be designated on the committee to move it.
So
Oh my gosh, I never even thought about any of that and how it would affect us. Okay.
That's why I'm here.
when's the
Okay.
election?
It
election-
is 27th. The town meeting is June 29th.
So she would have to, if Mary wins, she'd have to resign like immediately, or when does that take effect?
If she would resign immediately, because at a town election, you assume office at the time of election. So
Okay.
whoever wins for selectmen or school committee that night, because those are the two contested races, usually the contestants are there at the end because they want to know what the vote count is. And then once the count is tallied by the town clerk then usually swears you in on the spot.
Oh, okay.
And our bylaw is specific to that you cannot hold multiple seats at the same time if you're on the finance committee.
Yeah.
You may recall that Mo used to be on the Conservation Commission.
No,
It had to sit
library, David.
I'm sorry, library. You cannot be on another elected board and be on the finance committee. So Meredith then at that point would, I'm sure on Monday, but she would tender her resignation from the finance committee to the town clerk because she will have assumed the role of selectman if she wins the election.
Okay, so does that present a problem at town meeting? If Mary wins, do we have a problem with the number of people on the committee or presenting any of this stuff or any of that?
Yeah.
Or will-
Sure.
So all 5 of you would have to make sure you're there. And that's why I believe, I'm not looking at the agenda in front of me, but I believe we put reorganization on your agenda tonight, because with the resignation of Jerry Scrunchy, you no longer have a vice chair. And so if we're thinking ahead and putting this agenda together, is that if Meredith were to win, you should elect a vice chair. So that person then would be in charge of the finance committee that night at town meeting.
Okay.
If that were to happen, I'd be there to back you up the whole way. I wouldn't be going anywhere. But let's cross that bridge when it crosses. Mr. Marrera has been an excellent selectman, so I don't want to knock him off his post either.
Right.
All right, so we have made it through the warrant articles. Let's move on to approving the message for the FinCom book. And can you believe it, David? I sent this to you guys before noon today.
I
was
know.
ready-
We were taking bets and I lost. So
Oh, good.
I have no money for the week.
Oh,
And it was always a sure bet, and I lost it this year.
Nope, I'm getting good at the scheduling. I've got assistants at work. Like, life is good. I'm getting stuff done. So I put this together in full honesty this morning, and sent it over to David and Lorna so it could be included in today's packet. But I am more than happy to make changes. There are a couple of changes I do want to make, seeing that we haven't always made these same statements in the past, and I don't want to diminish our praise or criticism over anyone. So the first question I had was the exact amount of the increase, and David did tell me that it's a 3.6% increase over the prior year. So where that's highlighted, I do want to make that change. There's also mention in this letter that I want to thank Dr. Oakley for her years of service. But, we didn't do that for everyone in the past. So I would actually like to take out that paragraph. I do want to thank Dr. Oakley, but I don't want to offend any of the other department heads that have previously retired.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think?
I'd keep it. I thought it was actually a good touch. I
I'm-
know maybe where you start a precedent, I don't know, but considering our last meeting with Dr. Oakley, I just thought it was kind of nice of you to do that.
In full transparency, Dr. Oakley was, or Mrs. Oakley was my favorite teacher when I was in school. I was in ninth grade. I had nightmares for years about having to dissect a frog. And I was the most timid, quiet, non-confident ninth grader that ever lived. And I'm so sorry, I'm scared to death. She put me into another room. She handled it so professionally. None of my classmates ever knew. And if I wasn't telling you this, none of my classmates would have known. So just for that kind of caring, she was always my favorite teacher. So I'm biased, clearly biased.
I mean, if we were taking a vote, I would say keep it.
Yeah, I would have no objection. I think anyone that's gone before her isn't going to be calling up and complaining they didn't get mentioned or something like that. So.
Well, I mean, we didn't do this for my husband's boss in the past. Lenny Graff was the chief or was the superintendent of the highway department. The police chief when he retired, the fire chief Lenny Hunt when he retired. So I just want to make sure that we're clear and transparent and fair to everyone.
I only look forward.
Right.
I do like that.
Okay.
I like it, Mary. I think it's just fine.
Oh, you guys are nice.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should worry about people having hurt feelings, because I think the others knew that they were greatly appreciated as well. And I think it stands as a good gesture. I do.
Well, all right. If you guys feel that way, all right. I was concerned with upsetting anyone else, but if you feel that it's fair enough, then I'm okay with it then.
Well done.
Well, thank you. This doesn't usually happen, so I went on a long walk today and I couldn't stop tapping my chest. I was so proud of myself.
I think it's
Very
nice, Mary.
very nice.
You did a nice
Yeah.
job on it.
Oh,
I won't pretend to be the world's best wordsmith, but it's a nice letter. I like it.
all right. Well, there was a comment about Lorna has helped us so much this fiscal season, with this budgeting season, with all the technology. I kind of wanted to specifically mention her in there. Would that be okay with you guys?
Yes.
I don't know how she has any hair left.
Hey, Lorna, we love you. I know you're not allowed to comment, but you can feel the love. All right, then I'll add a sentence in there to specifically thank Lorna. I'll update it to the 3.6% and submit it with the updated list of officers once we reorganize the committee, if you guys are okay with it.
I just wanted to ask one more question though. Do we need to put anything in here about the rates going up 2.5%, or do we want to leave that out?
No, I'm open to it. I wasn't quite sure how to put it into words because we're not raising the full tax levy limit. We're increasing, is that the right way to word it? We're increasing the tax rate, the limit by 2.5%, but we're not maxing out the tax levy limit. David, what would your recommended
So
verbiage be?
if you're going to have that conversation in this letter, I think the appropriate language to use is that you are budgeting a 2.5% increase over last year's tax levy.
Over past year tax levy. All right. Do you think that's going to mean anything to the layman committee?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a little bit of a convoluted statement. So
Yeah,
I might be tempted to leave it out just to keep it simple.
yeah, it's a little more complicated. Let's leave it how it is.
All right. No, I
Thank-
appreciate the thought though. All right. Well, I will make a love Lorna sentence and, and update the rate to 3.6%, as well as update the officers as soon as we've determined what that's going to be, and submit it for the FinCom book. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the letter.
All right. Is there a second? Accept the letter with these amendments.
Yes.
All right. Is
Second.
there a
I'll
second?
second it.
Thank you. All right, moved and seconded. Not hearing any other discussion. Let's go ahead into a roll call vote. Mo,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mary, aye. All right. All right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. And that was to review. Oops,
Wait,
sorry.
Mary, can I just jump in for 1 second? The only thing I would ask is on that letter is if you could either update it tonight after the meeting or first thing in the morning, is I'm going to printer tomorrow.
I thought you already said you were printing it.
Is it
No.
done yet?
We're never this tight, but unfortunately, with everything that happened, we're tight this year. So if you can just make those adjustments, and once, that's the only thing I'll be waiting on.
Okay, so the Senate,
No pressure, Mary, no pressure. All things
I
waiting on-
can handle this kind of deadline. I've been under less. I'll update for Lorna, the officers, and the percentage. No problem. Thank you, David, for the
No, you won't.
specific deadline. I need to know. All right, let's move on to the revenue information.
So this always goes into your finance committee book. I've changed it up a little bit over the last 2 years where we've added these pie charts. They never existed before. I think it's just nice, quick, easy information. So you know a couple of things, what off the top of your head, you know what the largest budgets are, the largest increases, and where your revenue sources are. On the right-hand side is where we're budgeting for revenues. Line 1 is what we actually taxed last year. That's your levy that you taxed. And then you see a 2.5% increase in the other numbers that go with it. So at the end, what it shows is that from tax side and from transferring free cash, we will be spending about $27 million. The state then gives us some and takes away others. And so that's what the next couple of categories are, is in reference to receipts. And then under estimated receipts, we will then have transfers. There are 2 transfers this year. There's the $2,300 from the Uber account and the $49,000 from the paving account. So I have to reflect that. We normally set up money for assessors overlay every single year. We normally set up 125 to 150,000. Because we are tight this year, I'm not budgeting any. There is what we don't spend stays in the account, and we have more money in the account than we normally spend, so we should be safe, so we're not setting anything up. And then restricted uses is money that is allocated for specific purposes that cannot be allocated for the general budget. So for example, when they set their water rate, it can only be used for their water budget. So that's your water revenue, your water surplus, your water borrowing article. The ambulance receipt comes in specifically from the use of ambulances and gets credited to the overall budget. And then CPA comes in and can only be used for CPA funds. So again, you can see what the total is for available for restricted use. I need to change that. That should give a total at the bottom, which comes out to about 38 million. The bottom line must have got cut off on this. So
Yeah.
I'll make that change for the book, but it comes out to about 38 million and change.
So David, are we paying that extra money? I'm trying to remember how you phrase it, but the extra money towards the school debt?
Yep. So
Yeah.
if you could scroll up and you will see purposes of free cash. You'll see free cash in first section. It says free cash to offset debt exclusion borrowing cost of $350,000.
Yeah.
So ever since I've been here, we've always been committed to that, and we are doing it this year as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What we are doing different this year than we've never done before is the next line is that we're transferring additional $447,000 from free cash just to balance the budget. Normally, if COVID-19 had never occurred, this is what's sad. Had COVID-19 never occurred, that $447,000 would have either went into stabilization or it would have been used to actually reduce the tax rate. Because the only reason we're having to find this extra money is because we're expecting about $1 million to $1.2 million less in revenue because of what's going on with the pandemic. So it's too bad because we had done a really good job of putting ourselves in a position where we weren't going to need free cash. But the positive is this, is that a lot of other towns are laying people off this year because they are not in the same position that we are at the time. So you never like to use savings for operations, but at least we have the savings because we've always been fiscally prudent over the last handful of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
We still have a very hefty stabilization fund.
We have not touched stabilization. You're correct.
All right.
It's 3.1 million.
Yeah.
I will tell you that I suspect, look, I've been here for 7 years. When I got here, it was 11,000.
All right.
So we put $3 million into it in 7 years. So we got prepared for whenever the economy slowed down, because to me, we all know eventually the economy slows down. I think we've been fortunate that we've had a good 7 to 10 year run of growth. We know that is never fully sustainable. Right. So we did a good job as a town putting that money aside. I will tell you, my big fear is what our revenue projections are going to be a year from now. I think they're going to be worse at the state level, at the federal level, and at the local level. Mm-hmm. So next year, maybe the first year, we're going to have to dip into that stabilization fund. But again, it's a year away. We'll figure that out. But that's why it's there. It is there for whenever we have a severe recession. Next year looks like it could be that case. But once we get past, if we get a vaccine or we get herd immunity or whatever we do as a society, I think that we'll then make that turn and we'll start to have growth again. So hopefully we'll only have to use it for 1 year, but it's available there next year in case we need it.
On the line that says new construction 2,000 going towards the sidewalk, can we specifically say sidewalks there instead of new construction?
Okay, so new construction here has nothing to do with sidewalks. The sidewalks is an expense account. So when I got this year, its legal terminology from Department of Revenue is new growth. However, and it was always in new construction, so I just kept the language. I would rather it say new growth, and I can always make that change. So what new
growth.
Okay. So real quickly, what new growth is that we know what our tax base is because all of you own a home and you're paying taxes. And on that, we're going to raise 2.5% on that levy. What we don't know is that over the last 12 months is that there's been additional construction that has happened in town as well. So for example, somebody put a deck on their house, somebody added a garage, a new business went in. They haven't been part of the tax rolls yet. So when the Board of Assessors closes out all the building permits through the building department over the summer, what they will do is they will realize that we have additional property to tax, and that gets counted into our overall tax levy. Historically, we budget we assume about $300,000 to $350,000, but I reduced it to $150,000 because with what's going on, I suspect that it's going to be lower than in years past.
All right, that makes sense.
So that's actually additional revenue that is not an expense.
Okay.
But that's not a hard number. It could be even less than that.
It could be high, it could be lower, or it could be higher. So, for example, last year we went to town meeting and we budgeted a 2.5% increase. But after in the fall, after the assessors finished all their work, our new growth did not come in at 350. It came in at 500.
Oh,
We offset the tax rate, and that's why this past year your average bill only went up $80, because instead of a 2.5% increase, our effective increase was 1.7%. So I'm using a low number on growth because I'm fearful. But the nice thing is that if we're wrong and that number comes in at say 250, then instead of raising it 2.5, you'll raise it a little bit lower. But I have to budget low this year because we don't know, not know. We all know. I mean, we haven't been issuing permits for months.
yeah.
So even if people want to build something, they can't. So we have to be careful with this.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any questions on this? This isn't anything that we have to vote on.
No,
No, it's just enough. It's in your book. I want to make sure you know.
Yeah, it just needs to be adjusted a little for that bottom line.
Yeah, so I'm going to make 2 changes. I have to put in my total line, and then I'll also change it from new construction to new growth.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. All right. Let's move on to vote to accept Jerry's resignation, unfortunately. All right. So this is a copy of the email that we all received a couple of weeks ago. And this is where Jerry explained life is a bit busy and she needs to resign. I would like to mention that she has been a member of the committee for many years. She has been dedicated. She has been trying to do the best for the town of West Bridgewater as much as possible. So I don't want to say that she's leaving in any sort of sad capacity. I mean, I'm sad to see her go, but she has since resigned.
You know, should we thank her in our letter, Mary, as a member of the committee for so long?
Well, the letter, in the FinCom letter?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
How do you guys feel?
I wouldn't do it.
I'm not in favor of it. No.
Okay. All right.
All right. So we have to vote to accept Jerry Scrunchy, as much as we want to thank her for her service over the years.
Absolutely.
We have to take a vote to accept it. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
There you go.
All right. Sounds like it was first and seconded between you two. Not hearing any further discussion, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. Mo,
Yes.
Cheryl. Is Cheryl still here? I know she's
muted.
She's on mute.
I'm sorry, I lost you for a moment. I had to do all kinds of things. Yes, that is a yes.
Okay. Melissa.
Yes.
All right. Jan.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Mary. Yes. Okay. Now that we are a committee of 6 members and we no longer have a vice chair, we need to vote on reorganizing the committee. So let me hear your thoughts. We need a vice chair.
I'm good to maintain as clerk.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jan, I know I had mentioned it to you in the past. Any interest in being vice chair?
Yeah, I mean, with help from the committee, if you guys want me to, I'll do that.
We'll support you.
Great.
I'd like to nominate Jan if no one else is interested. I just know in talking with Jan, it seemed as though there was an interest. If anyone else has it, I apologize, but I wasn't aware.
You know, I'll be honest, I was thinking of it, but I still have a lot to learn, and I think Jan would do an excellent job. So I'd like to learn more before, working my way up the ladder.
Thank
It's
you
a
for
tough
being
slog.
interested.
It's a tough slog.
I think the jobs belong to young, vibrant people. Which means
Oh, my.
everyone's younger than me.
Oh, it includes
I
you.
had a joke there, but we're on camera, so I'm going to keep it to myself.
I like how well we get along.
Mhm.
All right, well, I've made a nomination. Does anyone want to
I'll
second it? All right, let's do a roll call vote to nominate Jan as vice chair. Mo,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Jan,
Do I vote on myself? Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
and Mary, yes. We can reorganize the other positions if anyone else is interested. I'm interested in staying as chair unless I'm voted off. Well, that kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, if I'm not made a board of selectmen, I have every intention of continuing on the committee. I love the town, so if I'm not voted in at this time, I do plan to try again for the future. But I love this town. So whether I'm on selectmen, finance committee chairman, or not chairman, I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Mhm.
And we
But-
appreciate your hard work.
Yes.
You do.
Yes.
Oh, you guys are kind. Much kinder than my English teachers, I have to tell you. That's why I'm a CPA. All right, so it sounds like we voted on officers.
Yep.
David, do we have to officially vote on the three? Do we just vote on vice chair?
You could, I mean, unless somebody was looking to step down from their position, which you're not, and Cheryl is not, the only position that was open and vacant was vice chair. So you've done that. I think you're good.
Okay. All right, then let's move on to the response letter to the school committee. I didn't know if you guys had a chance to read this yet. I struggled with the wording. I wanted to make sure I put it through in the most professional way without putting anyone down, because we're all trying to reach the exact same goal. We all believe in this town. We're all trying to make it better. And no matter how that was communicated, I believe that is the underlying issue that we all share, that the members of the school committee, the members of the finance committee, the select, all of us, we're all trying to make this town a better place to live. So I was trying to get that across in this letter without negatively impacting anyone else. So I just want to make sure it read that way. If you had a chance to read it.
Just reading it now, letting it sink in. But I mean, I can respect the school committee sending that letter, but they really don't have any bearings of whether or not Jan left or Jerry left, excuse me.
Right.
I struggle on letting them know she left.
Well, that's going to be public information. Well,
Of course, but it wasn't because of what they did. Right? Like, I don't want the thought of, because the letter came across saying we were upset about what happened with Jerry. Granted, there was some correlation with that, but I don't want that setting a future state of we're going to complain and expect people to be moved.
no, that's true. Just because they sent a letter, no one should have to resign. There would have to be a real meaning or reason behind it.
Right. That's my only, I have no problem. Hey, sorry that you felt that way. Yeah, that was not the intent. Just.
Do you, so Scott, are you saying that you feel like because Jerry's resignation is mentioned in here, they may infer that she resigned because of
Yeah, exactly. Probably didn't come across as well as it should have, but yeah, I almost like want to take that piece out. But again, that's just one man's thought. I'm just sharing it with you guys because, again, I'm just reading it. So
No, I struggled with this letter. I was trying to be very factual instead of emotional. So I tried to be factual in the fact that we received an email and she informed us of her. It doesn't say why she resigns. It just says at the beginning of the meeting, we got a letter and this is what happened.
Yeah, and that's the way I was reading it, just like presenting the facts. So I wasn't, but I mean, Scott makes a point. I don't know. How do people feel?
Yeah, no, I don't want anyone to be bullied into, and not saying that this was bullying, but if ever in the future someone felt as though they received a letter and they shouldn't have, that they be forced to resign. So I don't want it to be anyone pushing anyone else around.
Mhm. What do you guys think when you read
I
that?
mean, if I had to write a letter like that, I don't think I could do any better. I'll be honest with you. It's sort of a delicate situation, and you want to make the point too that I guess we can't be bullied into resigning from any department. I don't know. I don't think that was their intent. I think they were just upset with what happened. So,
Which is understandable completely.
yeah,
What
again,
about just-
I don't think I could write anything any better than you did there.
What about just instead of just saying that she informed us this decision to resign, could we use we were informed that her decision to resign due to her long tenure on the finance committee, and I don't. Did she finally retire?
She did read from Mark.
Yeah, that was all part of it. Yeah.
Right. So informing us of her decision to resign after a long tenure on the finance committee and her upcoming retirement. So it's
Isn't her email part of the public document?
okay.
Her email-
Okay, I'll shut up now.
No. I'm not saying that up in any way. No, I think it. I guess I'm asking the question: is the email she sent a public document?
Yes.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
I mean, if you guys have that with it, that's cool. I just.
I mean, you can't say any more, Mary, than saying we sincerely apologize. And we look forward to working with you in the future. What more can you say?
All right. I wanted to make sure we were all on the same page and saying the we's and the us's. I know I put some I's in there because I did meet with the superintendent and the business manager, and I understand what the differences were, and I understand where Jerry was coming from. But I don't want to apologize on anyone else's behalf unless we're all on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah, I guess, just as a member of the committee, I just don't feel like, I don't want anyone coming before this committee feeling like their work is not appreciated and we don't understand, the significant constraints that some of these budgets, are under and what people are asking people to do with the funding that they have. So I don't want anybody to feel bad about coming in front of this committee or feel like, we're not going to treat them properly. That's just
That's a good point.
all right. Does anyone have any edits they want to make? Because otherwise, I can update the officers or the positions at the bottom of the letter. I'll stamp my little signature on it and send it over.
Sure.
Yeah, Scott, are you okay with leaving
Yes,
it?
I am absolutely fine with it. I just wanted to see what others thought. Again, it's
Yeah, I don't want to.
it's the hey, you should she should not be on the committee, and I don't know.
I
That
think
kid of me telling me you can't tell me what to do.
All right, then let's go ahead and make a vote on this article, on this letter.
So what's the vote to send the letter, approve the letter the way it is and send it?
Yes, the only piece it sounds like I would update would be I can add the positions at the end of the letter or just leave it as it is.
I think you can leave it, Mary. I don't.
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
I agree.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion to accept this letter for sending?
I'll make
the motion.
Go ahead. I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor? Let's take a roll call vote. Mo,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
and Mary, yes. All right. Oh, we got a lot done tonight.
We did.
Done. And according to the agenda, that's all of our items. So the only thing we have left would be the special town meeting articles, which we can talk about the night of the
There
town.
there is no special town meeting articles.
Oh, great. Okay.
Nope.
So
Wow.
the next step is just make sure you vote on June 27th, and then town meeting on Monday the 29th.
Gonna put that on my calendar.
Yes, I found out from David tonight. It's not just a mail-in vote. It's also going to be in person, which I wasn't aware of.
What time is it open?
What is it? 9 to 7? You said, David?
Yes.
Thank you.
I will be
Same
there with my mask on.
You have
You
to
can-
vote.
yeah.
Wilson?
And then what time is town meeting again? It's the Monday, right? Time?
The 29th. We tend to meet at 6:30 to talk about items, but it doesn't sound like we have anything.
Nope. The
so-
town meeting's at 6:00 this year,
Oh.
not at 7.
Oh, that's right.
Because we went out and we did a survey, and I mean, it only won by one vote.
Seriously?
But I'm dead serious. So the selectmen wanted to try to just see if something, this was obviously when life was normal. And we were hoping that maybe changing it up a little bit. Originally, remember, we moved the town meeting originally from June to May, and we're moving it from 7 to 6. And by one vote, the earlier time won. So the thought process was, let's give it a shot, see if more people show up. There will not be the same pomp and circumstance before the meeting as there has been in the past. The Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all that stuff, just because we can't social distance everyone.
Yeah.
And we have an obligation to all of you and to residents. We have to legally conduct business, but we don't want to keep everybody inside that room more than we need to, because obviously there's more risk of exposure. So we have unfortunately decided that we're not going to have all the events beforehand. So I think, to Mary's point, it would normally meet at 5:30. I will post you for 5:30. So that way, if you do show up and there's anything you want to discuss, you can. You'll be posted. But I think as long as you're there and in your seat by 6, you're going to be A-okay. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be in the gymnasium as opposed to the auditorium. And the reason being is because we can social distance more people in the gymnasium than we can in the auditorium.
Makes sense.
Mhm. All right.
See you all then.
Yeah, sounds like we'll see you all on June 27th/29th. David, well, is it possible that the town meeting would end at 10 o'clock instead of 11 o'clock?
Nope, your bylaw says 11. So it's not the duration of it. Look, I mean, people have a right to speak, but I also think that you as leaders, and the moderator can do this as well, the selectmen can do it as well, but you as leaders, if people get long-winded, we have to be able to say, look, we want to hear your question, we want to hear your comment, but to put 200 or 300 people inside one room, the longer we're all here, the more exposure there is. And let's face it, a high majority of the people who normally show up for town meeting group is in a more vulnerable age category. So I think we have to be respectful to each other to try to conduct business and answers, but not dilly-dally at the same time.
Is that an announcement the moderator could make?
I think, well, I mean, it'll be up to him, but I'll be meeting with him, and I'm sure that this will be part of the conversation, yes. It's a balancing act.
Sure.
Yeah, no, he did a good job at the first town meeting last year. This will be
Jason
good.
did a great
You did, yeah.
All right.
Hmm.
Not hearing any other business to discuss, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
She's so sad about it.
Yeah.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, first and seconded, let's take a roll call vote. Mo,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mary, yes. All right, you guys, see you all in a few weeks.